And we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I'd like to ask you again to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot, so thank you so much for that. And let's get back into our second segment for the day. All right, so we'll be talking about the Phillies and their rotation, not the Marlins as the picture says. So we'll be switching up the text here. So just give me a second for that. But so over the weekend there were some significant news for oops, nope, I did the wrong thing there. Messing myself up. There we go, Phillies, and then there we go. Okay, now it's all good. So, with the Phillies, there were some significant news coming out of the weekend. First one, with their rotation involved. So the first one was Christopher Sanchez, one of the biggest breakout stories for this entire team this year, maybe for the entire MLB this year. He did end up getting an extension from the Phillies, I think that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I really was not expecting a Christopher Sanchez extension on my radar, but I don't think it's a bad deal. I think it's a pretty good deal, actually, and I think it was a nice move by the Phillies. So we are going to go over the deal here. So the deal, if we look at it, it is a $22.5 million contract over 4 years, covering his arbitration years of 2025 to 2028. In 2025, he will be paid $1.5 million. 2026, 3, 2027, 6, 2028, 9. So as he gets older, it does progress. So really, the arbitration years are not the biggest part of it. I mean, that would probably just be what he's getting paid anyways if he continues his positive progression. I mean, obviously, as you get to more years in arbitration, you're going to get paid higher. That's how it works. So it's really just making sure they don't have to worry about it in the future. I think a lot of times what happens is when you go to arbitration with one of your star players and you end up having a disagreement over your contract, it does hurt you long term in the future for when for the number of deal can get done. If you have to then go to an arbitrator and say, here's why this player shouldn't make this amount of money, and I think that honestly does hurt a relationship for the future. I mean, we saw Corbin Burns. I think he went to an arbitrator 2 years in a row with the Brewers, and then he ended up getting traded to the Orioles out of nowhere. So I think it does definitely hurt a relationship with the player. So it's good for the Phillies to make sure that this won't happen in the future, that they don't have to go to arbitration with Sanchez in the future, a guy they obviously believe is a part of the future of the team. So obviously, they believe he is going to be a big part of their rotation going forward. So nice job to be able to get him locked down and get him signed. Now, the real big parts of this contract are a $14 million club option for 2029 with a $1 million buyout, and a $15 million option for 2023 with a $1 million buyout. So these options can escalate to $16 million for 2029 and $19 million for 23 based on top 10 finishes in Cy Young voting. So I assume if he finishes top 10 in Cy Young voting one of those years, the money goes up. So a good incentive-laced contract for Sanchez, and I think overall is a good deal. Now, Sanchez, like I said, has been one of the biggest surprises of the year for not just the Phillies, but overall the entirety of baseball. Looking at him right now, he has a 2.67 ERA, overall in 84 innings pitched. His expected ERA is 3.67 as well, so it's not even like he's just doing this as a fluke. It seems like he can hold up these numbers. FIP is 2.49. Expected FIP is 3.12. 2 pitching WAR already, so that's done a really nice job. 15 games started, so that's a really consistent job by him. When a lot of players have been plagued by injury this year, especially pitchers, he's done a really great job of being consistent and doing a really good job. His K per 9 isn't that high with 7.47, but that's not really the type of pitcher he is, and his walk to K ratio is still good with it almost being at 3. Again, K percentage only at 20, so he's really just not that type of pitcher. Left on base percentage is good at 72%, so that's also good, and again, his FIP is doing well. So looks like Sanchez has turned into a long-term piece for this Phillies team, and it's definitely a guy I think they could look towards as a future stalwart of this rotation. Now, overall, I think we have to ask, is this a good deal for Sanchez, and is this a good deal for the Phillies? Now, I think this is a good deal for both teams, honestly. I think that it's good for Sanchez to parlay his good first half of the season to a long-term deal where he is going to be paid a significant amount of money in the future, no matter what his performance is. I think it was a good job for the Phillies. The Phillies obviously feel like Sanchez is going to be a big part of what they're doing in the future with their rotation, and getting him locked down and getting these two cheaper club options is a really, really good job. Let's say he continues this progression, becomes one of the best pitchers in baseball. you now have these cheaper club options that you can exercise, and you will then become a bigger part of your team for the future. So I think overall it was a really good deal by the Phillies to be able to lock down a younger piece of your rotation like this. And I just think that overall it was a fantastic deal. And congratulations to Sanchez, done a really, really good job this year with the team. And has had a really, really good first half. Also with the Phillies, they did end up placing Taijuan Walker on the injured list, which was kind of a surprise. I don't really think anyone thought he was injured, but he's really having a rough go of it with the Phillies in that second year of his 5-year contract. Now, when he did sign that contract, like a lot of people were like, why in the world did the Phillies give this contract? I mean, as a Mets fan who watched Walker for 2 years there, he's a good, solid pitcher, but he's really not much else. I mean, signing him to a long-term contract like the Phillies did really made no sense whatsoever when you looked at the options on the market and just, again, what kind of pitcher Walker was. I mean, you're looking at his contract right now. He has $18 million on his contract this year, then $18 million for 2 more years. So it was only a 4-year contract, not 5, like I said, but still a significant contract for a guy who's never been nothing more than a mediocre pitcher in his career. So really just made no sense whatsoever at all, and just something I really did not know why they gave it. So apparently the Phillies thought he had a lot more untapped potentially using his sinker more, but just no, it has not worked out. I didn't think it would work out. And it was one of those contracts like the Javi Baez contract with Detroit, Chris Bryant contract went to Colorado, that one the player signed. We were like, yeah, no, what are they doing? This is going to be bad, and it has turned out bad. So unfortunate there for the Phillies, but placing him on the IL will now give consistent starts to Spencer Turnbull, to Christopher Sanchez, and both those guys have been big parts of this Phillies rotation. Turnbull, of course, was a minor signing coming over from Detroit and has done a really, really fantastic job in this rotation, filling in for Walker when he was hurt before, and just overall has been a great spot starter for this team. So, sorry about turning the mic off, did have to cough there, but I think it is a good job by the Phillies to recognize that Turnbull is the better player at this point, and if you're the Phillies, do you try to trade Walker? Like, I mean, he's only in half of the second year of a 4-year contract. That was pretty significant, but at this point I just don't know what his future is with the team. I mean, Nola, Wheeler there for a long time, Ranger Suarez there for a long time, Sanchez, of course, now is here for a long time, Turnbull has done fantastic, so I just don't know how you can justify keeping Walker and making him a big part of his team. So I think it is going to be very interesting to watch Walker's future with the Phillies and just overall what is going to happen with this team. So that is a storyline I'm definitely following for the rest of the year with Taijuan Walker, how he's going to end up doing, and just overall what his future does look like with this Phillies team, because I just don't envision a long-term one. I'd be surprised at this point if he is on the team after this year. You could potentially make him a spot starter or a long relief arm, but you're paying a lot of money for that, and you already have a lot of contracts on the books. So I wouldn't be surprised if they try to attach a prospect to him to get rid of his contract, maybe even just release him. But yeah, this contract has turned out to be a disaster. So already with this, with his tenure in Philly, Dave Dombrowski, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but he has done a lot of great contracts in his Phillies tenure. But really, Walker has been easily the worst, and just the worst decision. Nick Castellanos is also not turning out great as well for the Phillies. So that could potentially be another albatross they look toward in the future. But yeah, this Walker contract really has turned out bad, and it's definitely going to be something that impacts them for the rest of the season, and maybe even long term as well when looking at their payroll. So yeah, just looking at the Phillies right now, I mean, this team is just so good. The pitching depth they have is incredible. I mean, Walker right now is their 6th starter, and as much as I have been trashing him a little bit, he's a good depth arm. It's just the way he's getting paid. You're not paying him to be a depth arm. He's a fine spot starter. It's just, again, he's not being paid like that. So right now the Phillies have 6 guys they can have out there and start a game and feel confident with. The bullpen is really great. Jose Alvarado closing games. Some other high leverage relief arms in there that are also really good. The lineup is, of course, incredible. They got Trey Turner back, got Brandon Marsh back. Could potentially get JT Realmuto back sooner rather than later. Bryce Harper, of course, having an amazing season like always. Kyle Schwarber doing amazing in the leadoff spot. So yeah, this Phillies team is fantastic. One of the best teams in all baseball. Easily the best team in the NL right now, and just has done so great this year. And when you're going into the playoffs, pitching is easily the most important thing. And the Phillies right now are up there with teams like the Royals, who have an absurd amount of pitching depth. And I think when it comes to the playoffs and when it comes to those long-term runs, the Phillies are going to have an advantage because of the pitching depth they have. And you even also have the possibility of calling up a guy like Mick Abel, Andrew Painter, to start games as well. So overall, if you're a Phillies fan right now, you have to be excited for the rest of the year. You still do have some holes, like corner outfield position, but you could look to trade for that at the deadline. You have some prospects, so they could look at that. But yeah, Phillies right now look fantastic and just are doing a really, really great job. So that is it for our second segment here, talking about the Philadelphia Phillies and some rotation news. We're moving into our third segment, which is going to be talking about some Marlins updates with their rotation and just looking at the trade deadline as well. So yeah, we'll be going over that, and we'll see you after the break. So thanks, and bye.
Looking for your daily fix of sports talk without having to pay for it? GSMC Sports Network is available on YouTube. Just search GSMC Sports Network. Get your fix of daily sports talk shows on YouTube, absolutely free. NFL, college football, NBA, MLB,